Tim Scott, our Assistant Village Manager and Economic Development Leader, is going to begin the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome. I think this might work. It's good? I do have to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. All right. We'll be on to the next one, Kim. So we can advance one. There we go. Just to demystify a couple of things because of some fortunate press coverage, which is always good to generate interest, but to demystify because not everything can be captured in short articles. And so just a couple of things up top here. To be clear, there are no private sector development proposals pending for the mall. Boy, that's going to be tough. Yeah. There are no pending private sector development proposals for the mall. So that's super important. The renderings that you've seen in any press coverage are just scenarios. They are illustrative to determine what a mixed-use future might entail, but it is not a build this scenario. They are not blueprints. They are just ideas. The two scenarios that were illustrated with very simple imagery shared were just to demonstrate the power of the tool, which there'll be a whole dedicated section about the tool for analysis and evaluation over time. Currently, the endeavors of the village focus on infrastructure analysis because what's out there currently will not serve build-back scenarios, and the potential for Public Safety Center number 3, which would be the police station and free up Station 31 for exclusively fire use. Next, please. Thank you. Should have that right here. There we go. Importantly, how did we find ourselves here? Mayor Nelson made a very good point about the era of the mall, especially in smaller markets, coming to a close. Mall opened in 1980, had about 25 good years, about 10 that were okay, and then it was about 6 or so where there was a precipitous decline. But the changing face of retail has been an ongoing process for a century. So we went from specialty stores to, we go back one, to certainly to the department store model, to strip and neighborhood centers, to indoor regional malls, which we had the benefit of for about a half century, medium and big box, then superstores and category killers that were disruptive to the retail system, and then lifestyle centers that brought back a little bit of the downtown flair, but really were just glorified strip centers, and then the disruptive effect of e-commerce. We like to say that if you click a mouse, you kill a retail store, birth a warehouse, and generate a whole bunch of truck traffic. But we found the convenience of them, of online commerce, to be incredible, but yet it has dramatically affected the physical landscape of our communities. As Mayor Nelson mentioned too, this is a 10-year endeavor to get to the point where we're at a clean slate. The first of which was the partial lifestyle remake with Rouse Properties, which ultimately produced Cinemark, the lone building that is still standing on premises. It was to be more than that. There was some outward-facing retail where the mall had a glassy facade on its edge, and then there were freestanding pads that were envisioned there. Those were those green lots in front of Cinemark. Those could not be pre-leased, or they were unsuccessfully pre-leased, so they never built them. But that was a clear signal to us that the future of the mall was in complete jeopardy. With that in mind, to get the conversation started, did a high-level slide deck about mixed-use downtowns, town centers, with an Atlanta-based group called the Sizemore Group. Why somebody from Atlanta? Well, they had roots in Hoffman Estates, grew up here, and were in the market. I encountered them through a class I was taking at Harvard in the summer where nerds take their vacations. And so we met, and they were very familiar with Spring Hill. So it was just to get the conversation started. So there was a slide deck output of that. We took on a bit of a roadshow locally. And then between that 2018 endeavor and our comp plan update, where we were able to take it to the next level, we're relying on the mall owners to come to us and to potentially say, yes, we'd like to reinvest in the property. We believe in your market, we believe in the community, and we're prepared to work with you to reinvest in the property. That did not happen. That forced then the next step, the comprehensive plan update for the sub-area, which includes the mall, which basically just codified the idea of mixed use. From there then, to enable any future action, we had to deTIF what was there to create the lifestyle wing of the mall that only resulted in Cinemark. That was ceased to exist. Not a single dollar was paid out for any public assistance from that process. It was re-TIFed then, the broader Spring Hill area, recognizing that comprehensive or wholesale redevelopment was going to have to occur. So there's a new TIF underpinning the property. With that then, market analysis, we started by acquiring properties with a $20 million bond issue, and piece by piece started assembling the properties, because that's the only way to affect real change, was to consolidate the ownership, in this case with the village, and then to start planning the future. To understand the future better, needed to understand the capacity of the market. So the village engaged with a very respected firm called AECOM to do a market capacity analysis. So the number of 1,500 apartments, really, it was not what was in the report. It was 1,500 residential units for the broader area, including the 52 acres northwest of the mall. So that was just a capacity study, not a you should build this many, but rather that's what the market could support in a range of housing typologies: detached single family, attached single family, condominium/apartment, above ground floor commercial uses, and mixed use buildings. So that was the next step, was understanding the market capacity. And then from there, started to get into the demolition of the properties, and including the next step then, which was trying to 3D model, at least starting that conversation about what the future could actually hold. Yeah, am I blocking that? You got it? Thank you. So this was the details. We skip through this. So getting to the actual numbers there, the $20 million bond issue then, you can see the acquisition cost of all the properties, a little over $10 million, a little over $5 million for demolition. Now it's into the next phase. That's what it took to create the tabula rasa, the blank slate. So that was the only way to advance the cause, was to create a blank slate outside of Cinemark. Photos, you all were witnessing this in real time as you were driving by, but certainly kind of a series of photos here to actually convey how the demolition was taking place. The mounds that were very mysterious, that were the chatter of a lot of people online about what those were, those very mysterious things. Yeah, you got it? Thank you. And so this is an ongoing process. The spatial organization is kind of a first step. We look at the broader site to try and understand, in broader terms, what the mix of uses could be, rather than a singular use, which is what was out there for all those decades. For nearly a half century, it was a singular commercial use, 1 million square feet plus. And as we said, that in that format at least, that was no longer possible. And it was more than 3x what the market study said we could actually support in the area, was up to about 325,000 square feet. So we're going from 1 million down to 325 for a variety of reasons. The 3D model is the current step to build the tool, again, for the purposes of future analysis and evaluation of projects as they come in. The infrastructure analysis that is ongoing to understand what we need for water mains, sanitary sewers, storm sewer, and detention basins. And then the civic catalyst, the idea of a potential public safety center number 3 in a non-commercially viable space within the 100+ acres of developable land that can not only serve the village's needs now and in the future, but also serve as a catalyst to set the tone architecturally and in terms of build quality, and to kind of view a building of a civic nature akin to what we have right here downtown. It's not uncommon for civic uses to be downtown. In fact, they were at their core. Many years ago, right here in downtown, we had not only Village Hall, police operations, fire, and public works, along with the public library, all within our quaint downtown. So to anchor the greater Spring Hill area in a central location to allow for police response throughout the community is certainly could produce multiple benefits for the community, including serving as a catalyst for additional development. The next step in the process will be to take all of the information, this decade-long worth of work, and to start seeking potential development interest from the private sector. Whether in whole or in part, it will more likely be a series of developments that it would then be our responsibility collectively to weave them together, to make sure that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts when we're done. But it's a wonderful opportunity to stitch it back into the fabric of the community. It's been an isolated object, even in its heyday. When you look at a map, you can see how it was an isolated object. So underpinning the premise of mixed use, what is it and why do we want it? Yes. Man, I'm practically yelling. Yeah, and I'm really yelling. Yeah. Because I'm almost at top of lungs.
If you stand back there, the speaker can cover up.
Yeah, I could. What's that? Would it come out? Sure. I'm almost hoarse. I'm almost hoarse already.
What?
I said I'm almost hoarse.
Yeah, I can tell. Good grief.
And I'm almost hoarse. Sure. I don't, with a single use in mind, too, very importantly, a cautionary tale. So we had 1 million plus square feet of commercial space that had its life cycle. Like malls, like products, it was introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. And the decline stage, and that's what prompted the next level of interest. This cautionary tale speaks volumes, though. In Ohio, in suburban Cleveland, at North Randall, Ohio, 1976, the world's largest indoor mall opens at over 2.2 million square feet. It had its number of decades of prosperity, and then it fell into decline. And now...
Now you have to do an interpretive dance.
Well, I'm an Irishman. I can try to do it, Jake.
Puppets.
I'm at like max volume. I'm already hoarse. I love the content. I don't, actually. I don't know. She and I were like, what we showed you yesterday, trying to put it all together. It's pretty massive.
I think you're back.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, this is what happens when you're soft-spoken, even with a microphone. So, this North Park, Ohio mall, what's remarkable is the build-back scenario there. That's why it's a cautionary tale. It is now 1.347 million square feet of warehousing and distribution. So the irony here is go from having the world's largest indoor mall to now being home of a warehousing and distribution fulfillment center for the world's largest online retailer. So it's really a smack in the face. But but you can see what, from one foreign object to another, not woven back into the fabric of the community. Singular use is in light industrial, certainly not appealing for the long haul. Certainly jobs were generated and value was created, but not broader community value, just the bottom line. Okay, next. Thank you. Thanks. So speaking about mixed use, we're going to run through fairly quickly different ways and settings for what mixed use means. Really, it's a mix of uses, meaning different types of uses, commercial, residential, etc. And mixed use, when we talk about buildings, that's a commercial ground floor, and residential are different commercial uses of above or a combination thereof. So we can run through real quick. So here what we're showing is just what we'd call basically a 15-minute city. just a term of art, but really it's historic downtown Park Ridge, south side of Toohey, very well established. About 20 years ago, expansion replaced car lots and other single-story commercial buildings with Uptown Park Ridge, which was a mixed-use development woven into the fabric of the community. But every type of use possible is represented here within a short walk or drive of the core. And its principles, much like Old Town, where we are right now, grid system, and then do something that is more open in nature. It allows us to create a sense of place. Next one. Thank you. Character of old or historic Park Ridge down below, the Civic building, that's their city hall, their entertainment anchor, which is the Pickwick Theater, and then just a typical mixed-use building. In this case, that one's used for commercial on both floors, the lower right. Up top is part of Uptown Park Ridge. To the upper left, mixed-use building, below grade and on-street parking, row homes, the attached single family, and then to the right there, about a block away, is a grocery store, but it has been designed to look like row homes. Next one. Mixed use done as a lifestyle center. I'm sure many people in the audience have spent time at Deer Park. Also, the lifestyle format, last 25-year phenomenon, where basically you take the convenience of a strip center and try to infuse some character to it, maybe a hint of walkability, maybe a little bit of public space. But it is open. It is incredibly car-centric, and that's okay, because we're mostly going to ride by cars. But by virtue of pushing the buildings back and featuring parking lots, it feels considerably different than a downtown setting where the buildings are oriented to the street, where all have to accommodate cars, but how do you do it? Can you do it in an artful way that still allows pedestrians and cyclists to be comfortable and to give that feeling of something that has lasting value? All of those same uses shown in the Park Ridge aerial are represented at and around Deer Park. They're just done in a more contemporary way. Next one, Kelly, thank you. And this is the resultant architecture, materials, and character. The retail component in the upper left, the attached single-family front-loaded townhomes in the upper right, the ersatz kind of sort of historical-looking or movie theater, and then how office is handled. Rather on the upper floor or even at the base of a mixed-use building, it's handled in a standalone suburban multi-floor office building. Yes, indeed. Next. Okay, so I had to sneak in Ranters real quick as someone who grew up there, still there. Ranthurst, 1962 on the left, designed by Victor Gruen, the father of the mall. It followed, first in Chicagoland, followed 1956, the original indoor mall that he designed for Edina, Minnesota. But it's a pinwheel shape, surrounded by parking. But what he really envisioned was something that was like an indoor version of a European square. So there'd be a community hub, just with climate-conditioned space, and the bulk of the retail outside of the department stores feeling like a main street. And then it was intended to have a mix of uses around it, which didn't necessarily materialize for many, many years. So he, by the time his career was over, was distancing himself from what he created mall-wise. To the right is what Mount Prospect and Casto Lifestyle Properties did as their intervention. And we certainly have a exhaustive conversation about what they did and whether or not it was successful. I would characterize it as essentially stabilizing the patient. And so prior to that remake into a lifestyle format, you can see how all the perimeter was activated with standalone commercial uses, many of which, again, we have represented at and around Spring Hill Mall area, a Home Depot, a Jewel, et cetera. Same uses, different format. The Main Street experience is in the core of the development. It is two-story. There is no residential on premises, and the buildings, I believe, suffer for, and the facility suffers for a lack of the additional mixed use of incorporating residential. Next. The resultant character, again, there feels certainly contemporary. It's a bit sterile and not necessarily of lasting value. And so it's not quite infused with the architecture or build quality that conveys an aspirational benchmark. Next. An attempt at mixed use as a lifestyle center, but with some downtown flair, would be Burr Ridge Village Center. You can see created off of Expressway Interchange. It's really similar to a lot of the lifestyle centers, but they did do at the center of it, the core of it, vertically mixed-use buildings. So and as always, the fire department saves the day. So there's two hats. Just circling back to trying to incorporate downtown features, trying to inject soul into a brand new development. A lifestyle center because it's a modern format that the market appreciates and consumers appreciates, but with some soul and principles of a downtown. Opus, in partnership with the Village Burr Ridge, created their town center about 20 years ago. And again, the key difference between it and a Deer Park, for example, and even a Melody Farm, which we'll show you in a minute here, is that they did use traditional form of a mixed-use, vertically integrated building along their internal Main Street. Next, thank you. Oak Brook Center, one of the malls that continues to flourish, super demographics, best in Chicagoland collectively, and a place that a former owner of our mall still has in their portfolio because of its economic performance. Back when they controlled Spring Hill and we were talking to them, even when we were performing okay, per square foot, conservatively, and Oak Brook Center was doing 4x per square foot what we were doing at Spring Hill, even in the heyday. So if you're going to put tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars into a property over time, the case is pretty clear for them. As a publicly traded multi-billion-dollar corporation with 170-ish malls in your portfolio, they're going to put the money where they know there's guaranteed rate of return. But even here, to remain relevant over time, they've had interventions. They redid their internal streetscape. They mixed up the uses. They brought a new state-of-the-art movie theater there. They built a lifestyle fitness center. The McDonald's corporate headquarters office tower, they still had their horizontal campus very, very nearby in the woods. But the office tower just to the southeast of the Oak Brook Center was knocked down and a luxury high-rise built. So that was their way of introducing residential at or around the property, in addition to the multifamily that was already to the north in a gated condominium complex from a half century ago. But the same principles hold here that do in a downtown setting, that do in a lifestyle setting. The mix of uses is the same. The physical format is what differs. Next, please. The resultant character. New outlot in the lower right, Restoration Hardware, freestanding, one of the few things that they have at their perimeter. The luxury high-rise I just referenced to the upper right. The condominiums from many decades ago that are just north of the property. The new fitness and movie theaters to the upper left there. The office building, again, handling the office rather than being on an upper floor on a mixed-use building, is in an office tower right on premises. But then to create a better sense of place and to make it more like a civic town center feeling, they redid the core of the mall to create an outdoor space that was inviting and could be programmed with events and things. But that would be like a traditional town square, just in a mall format. But all of those interventions, outlot development, mixing up the uses, new residential, new streetscape, all things we would do in a downtown setting or built into a new lifestyle center, they had to do at the mall again, even to keep them relevant, even with super demographics and incredible sales per square foot. Next would be mixed use in Rosemont as an entertainment district at its core. In the broader sense here, very compact land use, but it's where the casino was going to be that ended up in Des Plaines, Rivers. But at its core is a greater than 2,000 space parking deck. That today, conservatively, would be a $60 million proposition by itself at $30,000 a space. But that's what was required to serve everything else around it, which again, in very conventional fashion, are discrete uses that altogether is a mix of uses. But without those hotels, without the convention center, without all of those other uses, the entertainment district doesn't work. So it just takes a different format. And the resultant character is this. Many of you have probably even visited there. Office tower in the lower left, lodging, hotel to the upper left, a hybrid of an office building and a restaurant. And then their theaters, both movie and live. And then their town square in the upper right there. Very different character, principles are the same, mix of uses and trying to create sense of place, just done differently based on the site constraints and where it's located. Next. So this now would be where a mall is in transition from its historic mall inward-looking format into something that over time is borrowing on the principles of a downtown with a main street. So to the right of Hawthorne Mall there is their new mixed-use core that will show, it will come to life when we share the actual street view image. Wrap style parking garage, so residential wrapping that, mixed-use commercial ground floor, residential above, and then outlots activating it. That area in the upper right there was a derelict Sears. So when we see the next slide here, Sears on the bottom, what resulted as a function of their intervention and significant investment by Centennial, a mall owner who's also working on Fox Valley in Aurora. They're based in Dallas. They went to the municipality and said, we're going to do this as our property. We're going to infuse this with a lot of investment and remake it from, again, single purpose, inward looking mall to mixed use, vibrant. Kelly, could you go back one, please? Thank you. Just want to orient. On the right of the image is another lifestyle center, but a very slick, thank you, a very slick urban design exercise, even though, again, a gussied up strip center. Thank you. And we'll advance, Kelly, thank you. Its character, one more, there you go. A lot of soul infused into this. Public art, very, very refined streetscape. It's walkable. It's, again, a mix of uses, although the residential is a side component. But it definitely has character. This project was completed before Hawthorne started to see its intervention, and this really inspired the mall owners to take action, and then they did partner with a couple of the players who helped bring this to life. So far it's doing very well in what is otherwise a world of conventional suburban strip centers along 60 and 21 in Vernon Hills. This project brought some character, even though it's an auto-centric format, and it has inspired the mall's transformation. Next one. Another version that demonstrates what we have to do with things that used to be single purpose and give them value would be the Motorola campus in Schaumburg. 225 acres of nothing but office. At their heyday, Motorola had 130,000 employees, including yours truly. It is undergoing a massive transformation. The easier things have happened on the perimeter. So that's where they started. The hardest part of this overall endeavor is the mixed-use core, which is about 30 acres out of the 225 acres. But again, the same uses, just formatted differently, pedestrian orientation, and there's some lessons to be learned from this that we're applying to the Spring Hill site as a concept. Central Park, 12 acres too. Resultant character. Okay, it's an office building, but it's slick and it's across the street from a 12-acre Central Park. Obviously a very popular land-intensive entertainment use, multifamily at 4-story in the upper right, a rental attached single-family for-sale row homes down below. Their first mixed-use building in their mixed-use zone, about 9 stories with commercial base and 8 residential above. And in the lower right, article in the Herald a couple weeks ago, taking the lone remaining Motorola building outside of the tower and turning it into, adaptively reusing it for residential purposes as their latest concept. Next, please. Glenview Naval Air Station, as part of the base realignment and closure program over the last 30 plus years. Fort Sheridan went all residential. Glenview Naval Air Station, again, mixed use, done differently, single purpose, military. Trained most of the World War II pilots out of there, Navy pilots. Met its life cycle, if you will. And so the Glen is an incredible overall master plan development, but at its core is the Glen Town Center, and that's what the next slide. Its character is very charming. It is relatively small in comparison to the broader campus, if you will, of uses. The mix of uses, the same mix of uses, but they were really going for timeless in terms of their architecture, their build quality. It's in addition to a downtown that's less than a couple miles away, but they still use the principles that make downtown successful to make their new town center have character, be reflective of their market, and to try and provide some lasting value, with the big gesture being an adaptive reuse of the control tower that's in the middle of the upper imagery. Popular right now is having mixed use / a mix of uses at mall sites. In the upper left there in Alpharetta, Georgia, in suburban Atlanta. Just announced recently is a concept to anchor with a sports stadium, trying to attract an NHL franchise. It's not that we have those types of aspirations in our local market, but Arlington Heights sure does. And that's the lower imagery, those two images. But the key here again, regardless of the architecture, the scale, or any of those things, is that a mix of uses is necessary for economic vitality. It's just what form does it take? What would feel appropriate for Spring Hill? How do you weave it back into the fabric of the community in the hopes of delivering lasting value and again, economic vitality? The Arlington Heights, a third of it is stadium surrounded by parking lots. 2/3 of it is mixed use. That mixed use, the scary white anonymous boxes would be fully articulated and presumably modeled and based on market forces. Their downtown's only a couple miles to the east, but the underlying principles are what are needed to make a setting like this successful all the year, so all throughout the year. Okay, next. Thank you, Kelly. All right, so inspirational benchmarks. None of these, again, are intended to build this, but what it does try to convey is that there's a design continuum to try and create a sense of place that's reflective of our community's charming character. You can look at any of those types of uses that we were talking about in a mix of uses and apply architecture. It can dramatically affect the end result. So from traditional to contemporary on the edges, with transitional in the middle, I won't read all those words, but the idea is you have to do it authentically, and then think about the long term and what it will mean over time. Next. So the first one, these are 3 projects, 2 blocks apart from each other in Mount Prospect. Applying the different architecture yields slightly different results. So you have something that's traditional, something that's transitional, and something that's contemporary. Same thing, 3-story rear-loaded row home done differently. Cues, certainly masonry, high-quality materials, but the execution produces very different end results in terms of the overall feeling. Next, please. For multifamily, these just happen to, again, we're just trying to articulate and illustrate what the continuum produces. 3 very different end results from basically the same product. Next slide will show that. All three of those buildings are what we would call a Texas wrap. There's an integrated parking structure in the center of it. The building wraps it, so the parking's integrated into it, allowing the residential units, the actual form, the massing, the articulation, to do the talking rather than feature cars and the parking, like some of our modern developments. In mixed use, again, side with, again, the subterranean parking, trying to keep it as urban as possible and live in harmony with traditional downtown Park Ridge. And to the right, nearby in Des Plaines, those are three communities in a row on the Northwest Line, very different end results, particularly to the far right in Des Plaines. That is their most recent intervention in their downtown, and it is very different than many of the buildings that are there. So it is quite a dramatic statement. Next, please. Since we were talking about Public Safety Center number 3, the police station, done 3 different ways, essentially. On the left, Arlington Heights, award-winning, traditional roof form, all masonry. In the middle, kind of taking a Prairie School-inspired building. One of the elevations looks just like Unity Temple by Frank Lloyd Wright in Oak Park. That's in Countryside, this building, but they infused it with glass and a whole bunch of tech to try and bridge that gap between traditional and contemporary. And to the far right is Glen Ellen's new police station, very contemporary in its approach. So this will be part of the dialogue for West Dundee. In terms of entertainment, this is a Pinstripes. All 3 of them are Pinstripes. All of them employ different architecture, different end results. Another version of Dave & Buster's, done 3 different ways, trying to make it look like a traditional commercial building, maybe even mixed use on the left. The transitional one, here are some details to make it not look so cold. To the right, very contemporary of its day. Lodging, same thing, same hotel brand, done 3 different ways. In a historic district, something that's more highway on the right, and then somewhere that's like in a transition zone in the middle that's trying to be respectful of the broader surroundings, but yet isn't slavishly historic. Next. So takeaway principles. Very importantly, Spring Hill is more likely to be a series of projects constructed over a considerable amount of time rather than one single move. If a developer with all of the attention this area is getting as a result of this project at Spring Hill, if somebody were to come in and say, we're inspired by everything you as a community are talking about, we think we can execute, boy, wouldn't that be a gift. But it's more likely to be a series of incremental steps constructed over time. Our job is to make sure to integrate them so that we have an authentic sense of place and the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Anything that we've shown tonight so far as static imagery or anything that's in the model that's electronic, none of it is a build this as presented. It's just trying to articulate these concepts in a way that brings them to life without looking at a technical drawing that's flat piece of paper. Our goal is to create something special as a community that everybody can be proud of, that will have lasting value, and will feel of not only its day, but because we want it to last, but also feel like it's special. And so much of what is built today has been commoditized, and whatever we can do through the land plan, the streetscape and urban design, and the building architecture and materials to give it character so that it feels like it's part of the community and you can all be proud of it. Next. So this is the model that some static images have been grabbed from, and that's what you've seen maybe in the press. But here, with respect to the model, part of what it is intended to do again is serve as an evaluation, a way for the village and its elected and appointed officials and for the community to see what is being contemplated in something that goes beyond static imagery. And so behind it were some max scenarios that were created from that market capacity study I alluded to earlier, but that was how the exercise started, again, to develop a tool that borrowed on some of the endeavors of the past, but brought it to life. Next, thank you. So bubble diagrams are how we oftentimes tackle sites. The Glen is a good example. The broader Glenville Naval Air Station started as a bubble diagram, got refined into a more detailed site plan based on some core infrastructure, got more finely grained over time as individual projects were contemplated, reviewed, approved, and built. So here are two different versions of that. Again, nothing's rigid. These are just amorphous blobs that give us a starting point. Mixed use at the core is in both of those. Standalone commercial/retail, leveraging that which is along Route 31. The residential of the greater Tartans area and its extension of Hickory Glen as adjacencies are contemplated. At a core, or at least in a place that would provide the necessary function, civic and potentially open space. Right now we have a detention basin that is a big bathtub that hasn't done a lot for anybody. There's not even a path all the way around it for people to walk. Can that be amenitized in a way that could contribute to the overall feeling of the site here? And so after looking at this and trying to make sure that the commercial viability of the site was intact, the civic idea, at least with respect to Public Safety Center number 3's contemplation, was moved to the least commercially viable portion of the site. So that is the upper left there, contained within the ring road. And that represents only about 5 acres of what you see in color there, at least on the right, is about 100 developable acres in West Dundee. Everything that is still black and white there is Carpentersville. Next. So we start analog. I won't belabor this. Before you contemplate a model, let's just start. We do these figure line drawings. Sujan from Halcyon Levine, or our consultant partners who have gone ahead and brought the model to life, started analog. And it's just starting to space plan, saying, okay, take those bubbles and start to try and lay them out in a manner that speaks to those broader districts within the site. How do they manifest themselves? What does it mean? Do these feel like they're right? Next, please. The transportation network is critical. Again, it's easy when we're looking for properties online, when we're doing our work, to always find our spaceship. What we used to be within the ring road is always our point of orientation. But that constraint of the ring road, we're trying to look at it in a positive way, at least to the best of our ability, but it's what happens within that and around that we again try to weave this back into the fabric of the community as individual development projects come out of the ground someday. We want to make sure that there's distribution of traffic. And just the way there is in a downtown setting, where a finely grained grid distributes things more efficiently than a collector on the perimeter that, in this case, 4 lanes wide, that's as many traffic lanes as we have on 72 immediately adjacent, not walkable, not bikeable. The big move here is the northwest spine, essentially, that would be an extension of Elm Avenue all the way down to 72 to Main Street. And then the east-west move somewhere, again, these aren't fixed, this is just exploratory, that east-west move then bisects the broader area there. By doing that, if core new infrastructure makes it graspable, developable, at least contemplate in a manner that doesn't feel so intimidating to development community to facilitate individual projects, but yet isn't so finely grained out of the box that it restricts creativity or modern development types that may be perfectly suitable, but may not fit within something. And the exhaustive analysis and lots of infrastructure and lots of cost to build it all out in front, and then not have the flexibility of adapting to individual projects. Next. So then these are just tilted images of some of the output of the modeling, just to again show the power of the tool, not build these scenarios. Next. Next. Those are just analytical things. The model, and Sujan can speak to this too, the model is very powerful in that as individual projects are contemplated, there is a data set that results. We can start with the data and model the boxes, or start with the boxes and contemplate variables within them. Again, looking at comparable projects in the region, the two on the left, both owned by Dallas-based Centennial, transforming traditional mall settings like Spring Hill. Stratford, very similar in terms of the village's intervention and partnership with development community. To the right again, Motorola's Viridian, the Motorola campus by Urban Street, that's Viridian. All mixed use, all slightly different in terms of their scale, but most importantly, the amount of public sector involvement differs. Two on the left, very different conversation than what Stratford and Bloomingdale and West Dundee have to do with, in our case, Spring Hill. So next. Again, just some imagery from the skeletal model. You can go next. It's those are just static. Same thing. Go through them. There's the data set. There's a dashboard. So as normally we just get a sheet of paper that says this is what we want to do. What does that really mean? So as things are modeled on a project-by-project basis, variables can be changed, and that affects then the physical form. And then next. One more. Right there, Carpentersville, that looks like a big ice skating rink. We like to be good neighbors. Not presupposing any desires there, but the intention, of course, is anything that is contemplated on the West Dundee side can organically spill over, be contemplated to integrate with it so that it feels, again, holistic. Ultimately, the people that will live near, at, visit to shop or dine for recreational purposes, to ride their bikes around the perimeter or through the core, stroll, any of those things, that knows no corporate limit. This is truly a community. It just so happens to be in two municipalities. Again, that's more scenario stuff. Okay. All right, so very importantly, what the tool itself is and what it isn't. Very importantly, it's not prescriptive. We're not telling anybody what to build or what it needs to look like per se. It's just a tool. None of what you've seen tonight is regulatory. There's no zoning involved in what we're contemplating right now. This is all about ideas. It's not technology for technology's sake, but rather to help bring to life the things that might get built so we can fully understand them. And that's it. All right. So that was the hour we raced through with a little break for technical. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
So as Tim mentioned now, now is the time for you to interact with people attached to the West Dundee organization. And if there are situations where the person at your table or people at your table can't answer the questions, then they'll possibly find somebody, or they'll take the question and your information and follow up with you. And also, if you have some ideas, have some concerns, some thoughts, share those too. But the goal here is to have you have this conversation at your respective tables. But of course, you can feel free to get out. If you see Tim across the room and you want to talk to him personally, you're welcome to do that. But again, we have a lot of folks attached to the organization sprinkled throughout, so feel free to engage with them.
Chris, may I add one quick thing? We put up some sample, we put up some sample questions just as food for thought too. Since we emphasized mixed use, your understanding of and comfort with the idea of a mix of uses or mixed use buildings, any preferences on the architecture, the continuum from traditional to contemporary, the importance of non-vehicular mobility, how pedestrian friendly and cycling friendly do we want this environment to be, and any other observations.